Templeton Advisory Committee meeting to order for 1 August 2019. Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just remember, everybody, that this meeting is being recorded. It'll be on Templeton Community Television, YouTube, and probably a Facebook page near you. Everybody got the meeting minutes from the last meeting, which was the pre-town meeting and stuff, very comprehensive. Thank you, Debbie. Any questions or comments on them?
Make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
Second.
No more things? Bob?
Yes.
Amy?
Abstain.
Lee?
Yes.
Faith?
Yes.
Debbie?
Yes.
Will?
Yes.
And I'm yes. Okay, on the agenda, I had the budget versus actuals for year end, but we have not gotten those. I will send, tonight I'll send Kelly an email asking her for those. I would have thought we'd have them by now.
According to what was written, I think that it was from the TA saying that there were some things that she was doing that's something that we received, or in his thing. I thought I read something to that extent.
Okay, I read what he had sent. I know there's some things going on, so yeah. So I will check with Kelly to see when she anticipates having that, and so we'll review them as soon as we get them. So recap of the special town meeting. I guess I'll entertain comments from everybody before I have comments. Anybody have comments about how the special town meeting went?
I found it a little confusing because when we had the special, or the pre-town meeting here, and the town administrator Carter gave us the draft of the substitute motion, I had expected that the original motion would be read, and then they would submit the substitute motion. So I found that to be a very confusing process, and I think that confused people who were there voting.
And I thought exactly the same way you did. When I got there and I looked behind me and saw that up on the stage, I thought that was, I did not expect that. Mm-hmm. And so I did express to the chairman of the Board of Selectmen my displeasure with how that went. My understanding was they were going to produce the original town warrant, and I thought they had to do that by law because that's what was posted. And then someone would make the substitute motion.
I was going to say, I concur totally with what Deb said and what Tony said. I honestly doubt that people knew what they voted for, when they were voting, because it shouldn't sound like it. When you heard people talking, get up and talking, it sounded like they were confused. And I don't see how they couldn't be.
Yeah, I talked to some people afterwards, and there was a lot of people who were very confused, and I left there thinking, I don't think half the people knew what they voted for.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, of course, well.
Sure. I think that your substitute moderator did an excellent job, and I'll tell you why. This is my thinking here. Is for him to come in, a couple things. The background is that town meeting is supposed to be run by town meeting times, which is in the bylaw, as well as the fact that it's also in the bylaws about reconsideration of an article within 1 hour.
Right.
I think he did an excellent job of helping that individual, and as a moderator, that they can help them through the process of making the motion to table Article 2 and have Article 1 reconsidered. I mean, that was, to me, was very, very helpful to the citizens of the community to understand that process. And the fact that, because it was my understanding, somebody told me that there was going to end up being a substitute motion later on, in the meeting, once the reconsideration was done for the new members, and this is also in town meeting times, I think it's 85, page 85 or 86, you cannot end up going back and doing reconsideration. So if somebody had something for that particular article, they couldn't. They could reconsider Article 2.
They could have okay, so here's where I think people got confused. This is my opinion.
No.
They wanted to reconsider Article 1, but they had already read Article 2. Therefore, Article 2 takes precedence. So then someone made a motion to table Article 2.
That's correct.
To then say, okay, we'd like to, then someone would have to make a motion to reconsider Article 1. The vote was no on tabling Article 2. Okay? So then, we talked about Article 2. We could have brought Article 1 back up, and I thought someone was going to, until someone made a motion to adjourn the meeting.
The motion was to reconsider Article 1.
No,
Table
yeah,
Article 2.
no, they said they couldn't do that. You can't, that's two motions, Will. So that's what Mr. Henshaw said was,
Oh, okay.
you have to table Article 2.
Okay.
And I think when everybody voted no to table Article 2, they thought we were voting no to reconsider Article 1. And I think that's what's happened, and that's why the people didn't, I was stunned, because I actually had an alternate motion written for Article 1. I was gonna give it, and all of a sudden, next thing I know, everybody's walking out the door.
The other thing that I have as a question for you, because we talked at the pre-town meeting, was the fact that if there was a substitute motion that we were handed, and it was other than the articles, which we had already given our recommendation, that, and the reason I'm bringing this up is that it's our job to take it, end up making recommendations, and we have the ability to end up polling at the meeting. I'm just wondering what the process was, is why you didn't end up going through that,
Okay, so
because you asked twice
Yes.
about that.
So let me tell you my thought process on that. Since we're in the middle of a special town meeting, I didn't feel like we had sufficient time to sit there and discuss all the pros and cons of it and make a recommendation on which way, or however which way you wanted to vote on the substitute.
We did have it for over a week, the actual
Well, but the thing
substitute
is,
motion.
okay, but.
So I mean,
until it's made-
maybe we couldn't end up talking about it per se, but you could have polled each individual member and got their things at that particular
Okay,
time.
I think, I could.
I mean, the reason I say that is that in the future, there's going to end up being articles and substitute motions on a whole bunch of articles. It happens inevitably.
I know what you're saying.
That we in the past, we have done that. We have polled and given our recommendation based upon what the substitute motion is. I mean, that's,
And I think the reason we didn't discuss, because for all we knew, that substitute motion could have changed in that week. We didn't know. Like I said, I went to that meeting thinking the 6.9 number was going to be the motion, and then someone was going to get up and make a substitute motion. I was stunned when I saw the 6.49 number up there.
well, I just don't want us to get into the mode
I
of
will
not
take
having
that.
a reconsideration.
Okay. No, I will take that as a point.
Having substitute motions come out and we are not polled.
I
mean,
certainly will take that point.
Because we have done that in the past a number of times that I've been on this committee.
And I don't disagree that capability is there. I think it is there. At the time, I just didn't feel like we would have adequate time to discuss it thoroughly, and I didn't want anyone to make a decision based on not all the information. And if you're at the Board of Selectmen meeting the week before, I think maybe you'd understand my reasoning a little more.
Well, I watch
Yeah.
these meetings, so.
Anybody else have any comments on special town meeting?
To be new to the meeting, I found it very confusing. So if you're not involved in anything, like a committee or anything, to come into it, especially if you're new to town, and go to a special town meeting, it's very confusing. There's no really understanding what's going on, and I think that's some of the problem.
Let me just say
Yeah, I
this,
agree
is
with
that other communities have a clearer understanding of what's going on in town meeting. Why do I say that? Either with the Finance or Advisory Committee, discussing with the moderator or town clerk, have come up with a document that basically says all the motions and the actual process as outlined. I mean, this is basically an outline for town meeting times. I mean, and it is, and by the way, Robert's Rules does follow some of that, but our Bible is the town meeting times when we go to any meetings. So we have that ability, and I've mentioned this in the past, to take and end up having that document created. None of the moderators, or I guess there was not an onus to take and end up making that happen by either members, or that they felt that it was more on the moderator's position, or didn't think that. Because if you go to that, if you go to other communities, and a lot of communities do it as a joint. In some communities, I saw one community, I believe it was a woman's registered vote or something like that, that actually created a document for the community, and that was given. So, I mean, there's abilities to help with that process if you're new to town meeting. I mean, some of us have been going to town meeting for a few years.
Right,
And obviously,
right.
just one thing for anybody that's in the audience, if you have any questions during what we're doing, just raise your hand. We don't just have a certain time laid out for townspeople to talk. You can ask a question at any time, because we're here to represent the town. I did think, with a few exceptions, that anybody that got up, and maybe even I did a few times, that got up and tried to explain things, just confused people even more. So many people walked out of there with their head shaking. It's like, so that was my thought. Yes, ma'am. Please tell us who you are and where you live.
I'm Julie Kibbe, and I live in Templeton. I just want to give you some feedback as well from somebody who's been trying to follow along. I got to that meeting, I had no idea what we were voting for. It was confusing whether we should vote yes or no to Article 1. Because of the change in the numbers, I thought that was very poorly done by the Board of Selectmen. And I'm in favor of supporting the town. I want to see everybody get along, but not knowing what I'm voting for is not the place I want to be. And I consider myself an educated person, and I was having a hard time following along, and I've been involved with these meetings. I'm sitting in because I care, and I have children in the community. And I couldn't tell what was up from down.
We have a member of the Board of Selectmen here that I'm sure will take note of that, bring it to his board. I know, I say that, I don't say hope, I know he will.
I would just like to say that this is indicative of, it's been happening for a little while now, a few years. Well, I'm one of them. So the old timers used to go, and they knew the process. They know the stuff. They would, if somebody did something, they'd say, hey, don't go nowhere for, because for reconsideration, you have an hour, this and that. Well, some of them will come up and say reconsideration right after they just voted for it, to end that.
Yeah.
And a lot of those people, for whatever reason, are not going now. And people that are going really aren't, they don't appear to be up to speed on how town meeting runs. And I don't think they're aware of the fact that they should just raise their hand and say, Mr. Moderator, what the hell are we voting on? Can you explain this to me? And that is part of the job of the moderator, and responsibility if you go into town meeting is, you don't have to sit there like, let's see, can I talk? You just go down to the microphone, Mr. Moderator, can you explain this? Because I'm not sure what we're voting on. But a lot of people, I think, are just hesitant to do that, and you really just got to go down and bam, and ask.
And I think next time we have a town meeting, whether it be another special town meeting in the fall, because we usually have one in the fall for other things, or the next annual town meeting, I think we're gonna, I know like our committee talked, we talked with the Board of Selectmen to say, the feedback we've got, what I've seen on Facebook, because that's where a lot of people like to talk, is that people just they were very confused, and a lot of people don't want to get up, because
it's true, but
I mean, they don't want to be kind of what they think is embarrassing themselves by saying, I don't know what's going on, when 80% of the people there don't know what's going on.
I
It's true.
just want to clarify, I realized that we were trying to vote in a 6.4 budget, right? So
It was
my
cool.
concern was, that's round numbers, right?
Yeah.
So the original number that I thought I was going to be voting yes for was 6.9.
Yeah.
And when I saw the 6.4, if I voted yes for that, I didn't want to say, no, I'm still not in favor of the 6.9. It wasn't clear that there was
Right.
going to be an opportunity to move back to the 6.9 figure. And you're right, I'm not familiar with town meeting protocol, but I think that me and many of my peers are not familiar with this, and we do need to educate ourselves, but, you know, I'm an army of one at this point. If there's a resource where we can read up on, you know, town meeting protocol
Town meeting
or how to,
times. It's
yeah.
called the town meeting times is what we follow.
Is there something you can post to the town of Templeton?
yeah, I'll-
Is it
Secretary of
available
State's
there?
office also has a whole thing on the town meeting and how it operates and so
On the
forth.
MMA website.
Right on the Secretary of State's page.
Ma'am, the book is on the MMA website.
We'll get it posted on,
And-
I'll try to find it and post it on the
Right.
advisory committee Facebook
And
page.
and the cost is $30 for that, under $30. This is why I mentioned about my fellow members here, that other communities, because they don't have that, everybody doesn't have that book, is that the moderator, along with other folks, have created a document so that the motions and everything else in the process.
That's something that the public has to buy?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll look into
We do
that.
too.
If it is, I'll put a link.
Mhm.
Yeah.
There's a fee.
That's not really gonna work, because
Right.
we're already having budget constraint issues.
Yeah, and then they want.
The town is saying, we can't spend any more money, why are they gonna spend $30 on a town meeting, you know, go-to book, if you will?
Well,
We
There
need
is
kind
a
of a
number of
cheat
people
sheet.
that already have that, I know of.
Yeah.
that
so
have that.
there's Robert's rules and town meeting times that sort of outline the protocols of how to make a motion and all that stuff. You can find some stuff online about, that doesn't cost, that kind of, the Secretary of State's office has some good documents on there that I've looked up on how you make a motion, what certain things mean. So I'll try to find something and try to get it posted on our,
Thank you.
at least the link. But you're right, we all went in thinking the 6.9 number was going to be the first. And then someone could say, well, we don't like that number, here's 6.4. Right? So you may never have gotten to vote on the 6.9 if someone made a substitute motion, but that's what I thought we were going in to vote on.
Agreed.
Until someone made that substitute motion. And Jeff, maybe you could tell us how that all came about. If you don't want to, don't, and then have Mike do it, but
At the selectmen's meeting before your pre-town,
I know.
it was discussed, the 6.9 was motioned, and it was 2 for and 3 no's. And then the 6.4 was
I know.
voted for 3 yes to be brought forward. I expected many people to come up, including maybe somebody on the Board of Selectmen, to make an amended motion.
I was going to, and then it just takes
I was
every-
waiting for that to happen. I mean, I expected it.
Like I said,
And when
I
it
probably
didn't,
have it in
I
But
was a
see,
little
what
dumbfounded.
confused me, like I said, what confused me is, the warrant was posted to say 6.9. So if someone didn't know or watched the Board of Selectmen meeting, and they went to that meeting, they think they're voting on a warrant. I don't understand how the Board of Selectmen can change the warrant article that's been posted. That's what they did. They changed the number. Whether they changed the language in there, they changed the number that was posted to the town. And I
I'll have
think
to
that was
look,
wrong.
I'll have to look to see the sequence of that, because I don't want to speak to that if
Yeah.
I've got things mixed up in my head, but
Yeah.
I know what was voted at the meeting.
No, I was at the
Right.
meeting and I understand you voted it, but I didn't realize that you have the authority to change a posted article at the Board of Selectmen meeting. They do?
Doesn't it have to be posted first?
But I thought once it's posted, once the constable attests to the copy, that's what's brought forward to town meeting. Now, I understand that sometimes there's like little English changes, or you meant to do this number and that number, and that's just kind of, small stuff, but when you're going to change a whole number, if it's posted, and certified by the town clerk and the constable, I don't think they should be allowed to change it. And so if somebody out in the audience knows that, yes, that's legal and why, please let me know.
That's why I brought up, ma'am, the fact that when we ended up looking at the warrant at the pre-town meeting, we have to make our recommendation upon the warrant article as it's written. Even though we were handed a potential, because there was nothing guaranteed that that motion that was going to hand it to us that night was going to be presented as a in fact, some of us thought it was going to be a substitute motion.
Exactly what I think we all thought that.
It was obvious that you were surprised at the town meeting by that figure, and I actually think Tony responded appropriately.
That's why I ended up saying that we could have been told even then, and it's our duty to take it even individually on the 6.4 to make our
Just, if you don't mind, just to make the point, I just looked on the town's website, and the warrant still shows 6.978 on the town's website presently as a historical document. And it's listed as July 18th, 2019.
See, the funny thing is, it's
That would
sort
be
of a
the-
moot point, because even if the town voted yes, which I was pretty sure that, I didn't expect the vote to be as close as it was, that I figured the town would vote yes. So if the school committee didn't recertify it, it didn't matter, which they did, and which we're gonna talk about in a minute, but it didn't matter. So my intent was to give a substitute motion, to give the school committee a reasonable target to hit. Now, a reasonable in my mind. A lot of people might have said, nope, and that's, of course, they're right. But there's no way they would, after slashing almost $600,000 off their budget, that I think they were gonna come off it more.
I wouldn't expect them to,
Nope,
but
nope.
we're going to bigger and better things.
Any more comments on special town meeting? All right, I'll jump in. So since special town meeting, there's been 2 school committee meetings. The first one I didn't get a chance to watch. I don't know if anybody had a chance to see it or what, but they basically recertified the 6.9 number, all right? So we're already going down that path, and by them doing that, what that did was trigger the joint district meeting. It's not a joint town meeting, it's a joint district meeting. So that's set for August 21st at 7, I think it's 7 p.m. at the auditorium, where both Templeton and Phillipston residents are. Now, I did go to the school committee this past Monday where they voted on the warrant article. What they're going to present is a budget of $19.2 million, which is going to confuse people. Yes, sir?
19.786.
Okay, thank you.
889.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you. I mean,
I'm just reading it right now, that's why.
Okay, great. Okay, so 19.7, whatever it is, that's going to confuse people because it's really that 6.9 number that people care about. In Templeton, Phillipston, it's about 1.6 million, which they've already voted on based on the 19.7 number. So at the school committee meeting, after they were done, I did ask them if they, and I believe they are going to have Dr. Cassman give up and give a breakdown of how that breaks out and why Templeton needs to pay 6.9 and Phillipston pays their amount. And it's basically, they have money coming in, but they don't have enough money coming in to cover the whole amount. So whatever's left over is split about 84-16 Templeton to Phillipston. It's close. I think I've heard Phillipston might pay a little bit more, but not much. So that's what people are going to be voting on. I'm sure this will be discussed at our next meeting on the 15th. I want to get because I'm not going to be here on the 15th. I think we should vote no. And the reason is I don't want the town of Phillipston to tell me as a Templeton taxpayer how to spend my tax money. It's just, I'm not against the regional school district, but personally, I don't think that, it's hard times. The right thing to do is close Phillipston Memorial. Probably solves the whole budget. I understand the people of Phillipston want to keep that open, and for their Phillipston kids, they had their special town meeting last night, and one of the articles was to amend the regional school agreement. One of them was also to make our Board of Selectmen sign an agreement or something, basically saying that no Phillipston kids have to go to the new school or something to that effect. And it's like, I hope our Board of Selectmen won't even consider that.
And no payments for the school.
Right, yeah, I hope now, nobody has ever asked the town of Phillipston to pay for any of the school.
No, that's not totally true, because when we were going for the school, I believe there was a question posed to Phillipston whether they wanted to go in for the school. They chose not to do that. I mean, and that's their prerogative. I mean, they wanted to keep their own school, and we wanted to keep ours. So, but they had the ability to take it, end up coming in and make it a regionalized school here in town. Okay, rather than just a Templeton.
Okay, so I think we're kind of saying the same thing. Right now, the town of Phillipston is not paying anything for the new Templeton Center School. They are getting nothing on their taxes to pay for that. What they do pay is 16% of the operating costs. Just lump all the stuff together. So that's just kind of my thought on the school committee. The school committee did say that two things, they are going to use town meeting times as the thing. One thing they did say, and I would like, when the Board of Selectmen, people on the committee, this committee disagree, but it's fine, is they want to do a hand raise of yes or no, and I think that it should be a ballot. I think how they vote should be private.
Yeah, because that, if I may, I didn't make the last meeting, but the one before that, they spoke about using paper ballots.
Yeah. And this last one, they actually even talked about using the voting machines, but to recalibrate, it would cost too much money really to recalibrate them and just they could set them up, but.
I just want to make a comment. You were talking about you don't want Phillipston to decide, the fate of our tax bill, right? I think part of that, and if you attended 2 school committee meetings ago, they were talking about school choice, and the superintendent went through the numbers, and 20% of our school population is school choice now, with the changes that they made with the certified budget of 6.9. So those school choice parents don't even have a say in this, and now we're a little bit heavy on the Phillipston side and the school choice side. Templeton isn't really having a say in this too much.
Well, they actually did fix that at the school committee, I guess it was 3 ago. 3 school committee meetings ago, before special town meeting. What they're going to do, because they're concerned, the school committee, my understanding was they were concerned that people, if they were forced to school choice, if they were school choicing and were forced to go to Phillipston, they were going to leave the district. One of the reasons they school choice here is because of the new school. So what they decided to do was they could open up, they had about 40-ish kids on the waiting list. They're opening it up to them. That brings in money, and they were going to add, I think, 4 classes at Templeton Center. So probably, unless they wanted to, all school choice people could go to the new school.
That's right, and I'm still speaking about that meeting.
Right.
After that happened,
Yeah.
Chris Casbian went through the numbers,
Right.
and it's 20% of the school population for the new school is made up of school choice. He didn't say 20%, but he went through the numbers, and if you calculate
In the whole district, I think 20% is pretty close.
17.3.
Thank you. Yeah, it's like almost 300 kids
See, one
coming in.
of the problems that, and it was brought up at the school committee meeting, somebody brought up the fact, and I had brought it up earlier, is there is some level of ability for both the school committee and the town to make some cuts and get through this. Neither one has the foresight to end up doing that. Now, I look at budgets per se, even in the private sector. The place that most people choose to take and end up making the cuts are, and for the school, it's for the teachers and the support staff. not for administration. They could end up, have cut and had only one principal for 2 buildings, but they choose not to do that. I don't know all the whereabouts about that. So, I mean, one of those people have more than cover a salary for probably two teachers and support staff. They don't do that. On the town side, there's some opportunities without actually making some really difficult cuts. The one thing I did hear a number of times, and I have not had a chance to take and check this, is that based upon what the budget for the school was originally, and after the state cherry sheets came out in this last week, the school is getting $500,000 more. I haven't had a chance to check that out, but if that's true, they're actually going to be getting back up to their 7.4 and still not making cuts. So I'm not sure that whoever stated that amount of money was given more from the state was correct or not. I haven't had a chance to.
What I
From the
understood
original
was
budget.
the original, it's negligible. The change in the cherry sheets was in the order of a couple tens of thousands, not hundreds.
Well, I'm just saying, I haven't checked into that, but that's what I ended up hearing. So there's opportunity, to me, there's always opportunities going way back a number of months for them both to make some cuts and to take and get through this with a little bit of pain on both sides, and it didn't happen.
So I kind of have a strong feeling on that. I believe that the school administration is the most qualified to decide whether they, just because the rule says they can do something doesn't mean they should. Meaning, one principal for 2 schools, especially when they're geographically located, not geographically located together. I believe that the superintendent of schools is the most qualified person to decide what he needs for his staff. Unless you've ever done that job, I don't think that you have the insight. And I think this is in anything that you do. If a doctor tells you something, and well, I don't believe him, I think he can do it a different way. But if you're not a doctor, how are you qualified to say that, or how do you have the experience
The reason
to
I
say
bring that
that?
up, is that years ago, we had principals that covered 2 schools here in town.
3 at one
I mean-
point, I think. He's covered 3.
Yeah, he covered 3 schools years ago. So, I mean, the capability is there.
No, I'm not saying that it couldn't be done. And the rules certainly provide that. I'm saying that not being in a school system, I'm not qualified to determine what they need for staff.
Well,
I don't know how many paras they need. I don't know how many, teachers they need or special ed teachers. That's what we have an elected school committee and what we pay the superintendent of school to run our school division for, our district for.
but you don't hear them saying that they even looked at that. That's my whole point.
Doesn't mean they didn't though.
They did. In October, they did talk about the idea of one principal for the multiple buildings again. And as a whole, from what I remember of the meeting, the committee as a whole was against it, as well as the teacher representatives that were there, remembering back to how it used to be, and they wanted, if they could, they wanted to preserve the administration staff at both buildings.
There's always choices and prioritizing.
I was just wondering if we were on a joint meeting still, or we were on the,
We were on recap of the school committee.
okay. I'm sorry.
We haven't got to that.
I was just wondering, because I got some things to say on all this, but I didn't think it was appropriate at the,
Yeah, we've been awful quiet.
yeah.
So obviously, most people I'm kind of opinionated on stuff, but I really just believe in having facts and having people, make the right decisions, and I don't believe that people just haphazardly make decisions. I think that these are well thought out decisions. And it's, the school committee didn't recertify the number just because they wanted to stick it to the town. That's and I've seen that posted, it's like, that is absolutely not what they're trying to do. okay? They're trying to get the best education for our kids. And they believe that that's what they need from the town of Templeton to do so. They're not wrong for thinking that. Could they make other cuts? Probably.
Excuse me, Tony, I do think they are, actually, because that's not their duty under the law. Simply put,
Yeah.
that is not what their duty says. It doesn't say to give the best education possible to the students. Nowhere in the rules does it say that.
Okay.
I'm just saying, I'm sick of hearing that stuff. The other thing that I'm wanted to say, and as you can tell, I'm getting a little,
That's okay.
is school choice. I hear, when I hear, and it's not a thing for Tony, but when I hear people say this is the most qualified person, I look at school choice and I say, how can anybody with an education believe this works? Because we have 17.3% of our population paying 3% of our bill. Okay? We have Templeton paying 86% of the budget, even though we're 70% of the population of the school. Okay? These numbers don't work. You have kids coming in. We have 247 kids coming into this school with an average of $5,000 a head. That's 17.3%, okay? Then we have the other 1,189 kids coming from Templeton and Phillipston, bringing $14,000 with them. Almost $15,000 in financing with them.
Right.
That's where the situation falls apart, because every school choice kid that's above zero, above an equal out and in, is a negative to the town of Templeton.
Right.
And it's a takeaway from our kids' education. Every single one. And they're using it as a piggy bank. That's what they've been using it as, a slush fund, a $1.4 million kiddie bank. That's their money, not our money, to say anything about.
Okay.
Tired of seeing it, tired of hearing it. And I think it needs to be looked at, and that was my suggestion on the new or old business, that if we could, as a committee, take and look and see if Templeton is wise to continue with the situation that we're in because of what we pay, the percentages of what we pay, the amount of kids that we have in the system. Are we footing a bill for others?
I think it's a great.
And I think somebody needs to look at it, because I don't think it's being looked at.
So
It's
I
also
guess,
increasing the class sizes of Templeton without.
By 12 kids per. There's 141 kids in our system right now.
so if you.
Above.
Right, so if you took those 141 kids out.
That's above the 106 that we
Yes,
send
but-
out.
Right, so I'm just saying,
Just-
when if you get to 0-0,
Yeah.
okay? Does
Then it works.
that- Okay, so if we got to 0-0 and just say it reduces whatever by 100,000, I'm sorry, $1 million or whatever the number you gave was.
Oh, 1.4.
Yeah, 1.4 million. Can the school district cut 1.4 million, but still educate with decent class size?
Well, let's just say
You know what I'm
this.
saying?
Let's just say this, with the present amount of students in the school, we get about $13,500 per student is the average. If you knock that down to $1,189 and knock out the school choice money, it goes up to 15 and change.
I think you have a good point, because if you look at how much we pay per student for Monty Tech, so I don't disagree with what you're saying. I think the state is the one that sets that $5,000 number,
Correct.
and there's been talk about increasing it. But I think it's a good question that we should maybe raise to the school committee. If you want to form a question, I'll be happy to send
So
it
you want-
to the.
Sure.
One of the
But I
things-
think it's a good point, is if you went 0-0, what does that do to everything? If you didn't do school choice? Because I guess I'm under the misconception that school choice is a good thing.
I think, I was going to say, school choice might be a good thing for the school, as far as for the management of the school, because it gives them float. But for the taxpayer and for the students, I think it's a negative.
I think that's a good point.
Just my point.
I'll be honest, I have not looked at it that way.
Yeah.
The other thing.
I have quite,
See, and I have to go along with Bob, because when you take out those school choices, okay, that's quite a few students. can you reduce the amount of teachers that we need? If you reduce the
Well,
amount of
sure.
teachers
Yeah, I would think yes.
by that many, the budget goes down. So that the overall impact is not 15, Bob, it could be still 14, because you have less people that are on the payroll.
Well, okay, so that's my question.
I mean,
Is that
you have to do that analysis.
If you removed $1.4 million of school choice money, is the equivalent cuts of not needing as many teachers and paying those salaries and whatever, $1.4 million? I think the answer is no.
Where is it appropriated in their budget? Where does the school choice count?
Yeah.
Where does it come into their budget?
They don't generally use that school choice money.
Mr. Bennett? Yes, they are.
Just
They're using a lot.
another thing to look at, and this is in the school's budget, they have a chart in there that shows the foundation
Right.
population, which is, if you look at chapter 70 and that
Yeah.
reform formula,
Yeah.
of how the state, Department of Elementary and Secondary Education arrives at the minimum local contribution, it's off the foundation enrollment.
Right.
And if you look at the student population in general is going up, while the foundation enrollment, it went down and it's been level for the last few years, say 3 or 4 years. But the student population due to school choice has been going up. The state formula works off the foundation. It's, again, it comes down, they bring 5,000 with them, but the chapter 70 thing and the minimum local contribution, it's on the foundation. And it's, you know, what the town can afford with valuations and things like this, several things involved in there. But it's the number of students that live in the towns that they have to count. And there's been questions about, well, homeschool or this or that, and I've heard several
Yeah.
different answers. But to me, that is, that's the issue, and it's with the funding.
Right. So I do know, okay, so obviously the state's funding formulas are messed up. I do know that it is a district's choice whether they choose to school choice or not.
Yes, every year.
So if you choose not to, does that mean people cannot school choice out of the district?
No, they
Yes.
cannot stop you from leaving.
Right, but
They
then
can only
you-
not accept
Okay,
students.
so then you sort of have a weird little dichotomy there of, if you have 100 kids you know going out, you want 100 kids coming in to cover that. Sure you do,
Why?
because you have to pay that 5,000 going out.
But you're getting 15.
Yep. You're paying-
So you're left with.
You're
10.
still 15, you're getting an extra 10 per child that leaves.
Yep. Exactly.
There's an extra 10 left in the kitty for every child that leaves.
Right, so if
So-
one leaves
so
and
then
10
theoretic-
stays and 5 comes in, that's your
Okay, so-
15, right?
I'm sorry, I gotta, that's all right. It's all right. I know, I appreciate.
Continue.
Right?
Appreciate the education.
I have one other question, and I have to pose it to the selectmen here. When I ended up seeing the last, one of the school meetings just recently, the fact that it was brought up by the superintendent about moving teachers in there already. Here's the question that I have, because this building is a town building. It's not a school district building. Regardless of how many people you see on the elementary school building committee, it's a town building because the town is paying for it. Has the town, as a selectman, I don't know if this, maybe I missed it, has the town turned that school over?
No.
Is that?
No. And I believe the issue or the point was teachers can start to go in there to look at the building. They're moving stuff in. It was, the warrants, last few weeks on warrants, furniture and stuff like that is starting to come. So I think they're letting teachers go in to look at stuff and, hey, is this what we ordered? This is what we want, what classrooms or what and stuff. But the building has not been turned. Matter of fact, they're still working on leasing, things like that, and the school is still talking. So, no, That
Because that
still
was
belongs
talked
to
about by the
the,
selectmen, about the actual
that still belongs
leasing
to the town and
document.
has not been, there's
Hasn't
been no
That
turnover.
hasn't been finalized yet, no.
Just FYI, I toured the school last week with the school committee, and the furniture is in the classrooms, the teachers' boxes are in their classrooms, the labels for which teachers are going in which classrooms are on the doors. I don't think any of the boxes have been unpacked, but I haven't been there in a week. But there is furniture and there is infrastructure in place.
And
Well, see,
Yeah.
I look at it from perspective, if you were a landlord, you wouldn't let somebody move into the building without a lease.
Does the building have a certificate of occupancy?
I don't believe so yet. I think there is
I
a hole
think that
because
there-
there is still,
There's some issues that need to
There's
be.
a punch list that they're going through.
They have to
before
go
they give it
through.
them. I think they're trying to be a little proactive. I don't think what they're doing is.
well,
really
not for
good.
nothing, in a couple of months, you're gonna be talking about the fiscal '21 budget, never mind the 2020 budget. I mean, and the school is sooner than the towns.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, I mean, it's, we're in August. It's like right around the corner.
Bob, did you have any other? Thank you for those are good comments. I really appreciate it, and stuff that I hadn't thought about personally.
I was gonna say, it just, I mean, the only thing I wanted to add is that if you just look at, I think it's page 338, it shows that what we get for school choice for funding after we send out the money is a balance of like 704,095. And we have to teach 141 kids with that. Just saying, it's 10% of the kids,
Six classes.
10% of the kids and 3% of the budget?
But you really, if you spread those kids out over 13 grades,
12 apiece, 11.75 apiece.
I don't do public.
But
Yeah.
if it doesn't increase, like I know it increases class sizes, if it doesn't increase, like, there's those fixed costs, right? So if you're not adding more teachers or adding more of those variable costs to teach the
You have
same
to-
amount of kids and the school choice kids, wouldn't it bring down your per student?
If that was the case, but I don't see how you can teach 247 kids out of 1,436 without additional staff. It just, I don't see it as feasible. That's,
You really have to do a good analysis on this whole thing.
that's 12 classes.
I'm sure it's
Break it
there.
down.
Break it
I'm sure the analysis is there, and.
I don't think the school, this committee has gone through that analysis.
If you send me your questions, I will send them to the superintendent of schools.
Sure.
And, I mean, they'll come from the committee.
That's fine. Yeah.
And then try to get a better breakdown of, why or why not is school choice good for the district? That's really what we're asking.
Right.
It seems to me that they wouldn't go all in on school choice, but again, who knows if they didn't think it was a good thing, even to the point where, I think part of it is they're trying to keep everybody happy, okay, by adding those extra 40 school choice. Now they have a way to keep Phillipston Memorial open, and, I mean, the best thing for look, Desi could come in December and say, close it. Okay, and if it's not on the table this year, it's probably gonna be on the table next year, because I don't see budgets getting any better. Unless somebody announces that they're gonna bring some big corporation in here, or bring in some tax money, sir.
And just on the school choice thing, and again, comes from the school district, the population of school choice students is equal or just going above the student population from Phillipston. There are more school choice kids in the school district than there are school kids from a member
So,
town.
and I see your point is, if we're paying X amount of taxes, they're sort of getting a free ride.
Yeah, well, Phillipston, just if you take Phillipston's got 186 kids, they're paying $1.6 million. There's 247 school choice kids, they're paying 1.4. It's not a big math problem.
If you guys do the study or find out about the study, I think maybe you should ask also about the special needs and the paras. I don't know if that's between the lines.
No, that is all part of the formula. I don't know.
A lot of the special
I don't
needs
know-
kids, all their stuff comes with them too.
Yeah.
Different
I mean,
packages,
there's
those
like
come.
funding that
There's-
comes
I
with
got
special needs.
I printed it out this afternoon, I'm trying to go through it, it's like trying to understand Einstein's
I don't
theory, I don't.
think
This is a really great
And
point.
they allow
I don't think
special
it's been
needs
talked
kids
about.
to
Yeah.
school choice in?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
I
I
depends
think it's a
on,
hole we dug that we don't know.
it depends on what the school can take, and because it's school choice, the school can choose to take a student or not based upon their needs and what the district can provide, and can always sort of send them home, as it were. So in theory, if a student came here from Winchendon and we couldn't accommodate their special needs, they could be sent back to their district based upon what would happen. I get, that's all in theory, I've never
But I
heard
think-
of that actually
I
happening,
think
but,
sometimes a special needs student probably comes with more than just the 5,000 though. I mean, I think there's other funds that.
I don't think
know.
so.
It's part of the,
No.
it's part of the formula. Like I said, it's trying to figure it out. The formula out is,
Well, I think that, and I think Jeff made a good point, is it seems like, well, we say it's not fair to Templeton, it's not really Templeton or Phillips, it's the state. Their state's formulas are all, you know, they're gonna give MBTA $18 billion to fix their infrastructure. Well, how about some small towns out here?
So how often is this recalculated? How often is that per pupil number recalculated?
I don't think it's ever.
Because I think it's been a long time.
oh, I was gonna say, you mean the dollar figure, the 5,000?
Right, so that 5,000.
I think it was like
number.
93.
Yeah,
I think that
so,
was the
I mean,
original
that's a
number.
mistake at the state level, it's
Right,
not
right,
anything.
right.
Totally.
Yeah,
Like,
nothing
we're
we
just
can do.
riding that along, and each district has a different amount.
I read
I
something.
know for sure there are neighboring towns that get more money than we do per student.
Why?
Because so I'm looking at a page right now that says per pupil expenditures are calculated by dividing a student's district operating cost by its average pupil membership, blah, 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 blah. So if that was done in 1993,
If you're a rich community, that works in your favor.
right, and in 1993, our school was much smaller, our district was smaller, the cost was much lower. So if that's what this number is based on, no wonder 5,000 for any student that we have isn't gonna cut it anymore.
Let me just interject one other thing. To me, the best way to take it, end up having the state correct this, and this, I don't want to take and see this happen. Templeton is not the only district that's having
Oh,
problems.
okay, because this is how to
problems.
calculate it.
Orange is having problems.
It's not a calculator, it's
The
just
best thing that
Yeah,
could
this is
happen
just a
is that
formula
2 dozen
by the write-up.
schools actually came down to the fact of December
2017 figures.
and force the state to take it, end up getting into 2 dozen schools that they can have to make budgets, they would see that this is a big problem, not only for our communities, it would be statewide.
I think that's a good point, and I think you find the more of the rural communities out this side of 495 and maybe even this side of 190 have more of the issues, and a lot of it's in transportation.
Yep.
And there are a bunch of 1/12 budgets out there right now.
Oh, there are.
There are.
But,
This is,
right, right.
Exactly.
But I think we've talked about this before, Jeff, where there are a lot of 112 budgets out there, but before DESI comes in, they get resolved. More often than not, they get resolved. Maybe it's not a bad thing.
Have it go all the way.
Yeah.
It'll just hurt.
Is it possible for when DESI comes in, could that trigger the correction of the school choice dollars?
No.
Could that
I
potentially,
don't think so.
that needs to come from the state level to reevaluate the
Yeah.
cost per?
That's like a big infrastructure thing to have them change.
That's.
Especially if it's
the
been
whole-
sitting around since the 90s, that's like a big piece of
Maybe,
legislature.
Maybe once
Legislation.
schools starts, or when we start talking about the budget for next year, when Dr. Cassavant's here, talking about their budget, we can bring that up, and I don't think we're gonna solve anything now by saying, oh, we, you know, $5,500. I mean, obviously, we need more money, but my point, Bob, was I don't think if we went to 0-0 in and out, that the operating costs of the school go down by that much that comes in.
Well, I was gonna say, there's nothing that we can do with this right now to do anything for our present situation, but along those lines, I just put together some simple numbers this afternoon and broke it all down, and if you use last year's budget, we're $36,000 off of that funding right now. Even if we, at our 6.4 and the thing from this. So it does make a difference in the tax dollars for the towns. I don't know what it makes on the other end. but along those lines with the school choice, and you had said something related to if it goes below, let's say if we're sending out students and nobody's coming in. An article last week that was in either the Telegram or the Republican or one of the papers around here, stated that some districts are finding out that by sending out kids, they're better off monetarily because they retain more money per child.
That's right.
And it might not be the case in every situation, because you might end up at that point where you're a teacher high, teacher low, or, the class size issue might play a game in there somehow. But it does make sense, dollars and cents wise,
So somebody made light of the fact that we should school choice everybody out, and we would be ahead. I mean, that's not
Okay.
far-fetched.
Well, that wasn't really,
It's not realistic.
that really wasn't what was brought up. You're talking about a
Yep.
special town meeting?
No.
Oh, okay, because it was brought up to have everybody, for the new school to be a lab and for everybody to do online, but, okay. I guess that does kind of, all right, any more comments on the school committee meeting? I think that was great discussion, and I certainly learned a few things.
Well, some places are actually looking at, and you bring all online, of doing online. There is countries that the kids are being, especially in Japan, they're being taught online
China
because,
is what Steve used.
I think it was Japan that I saw.
Okay.
That I saw.
China.
There are virtual schools
Yeah,
in
virtual
the state,
schools.
in the state,
And that's
but
basically, the cost is
you don't want your kid in the
reduced
basement
by
all by
doing
himself.
that.
So you're right, but you also have to have communities where you have at least one parent at home, and with the tax rate we're paying in Templeton, most people have to have both, if it's a two-person, mother, father, or whatever the mix is, to be politically correct, that they both have to work to afford, the household budget. So you don't have somebody there. You have a lot of kids that live with the grandparents or aunts and uncles or foster kids. It's not a reality. I mean, when you get into the upper grades, when you're in college, you can do online classes, but for lower kids, I think they need that one-on-one or the teacher interface.
It's the social skills
social-
and
yeah.
how to react with people that
So-
you don't want kids sitting at home by themselves with just mom.
And the reality too is that with the new school and the NSD agreement, that has to be used as a school for a certain number of years too, right?
Yeah. Well, if it's a laboratory for a school, I don't know.
Maybe that would count.
All right, great recap on the school committee. Okay, so on the 21st, we have the Narragansett joint, I put town, that is incorrect, it is a joint district meeting. It is not a town meeting, but in order to vote, you have to be a registered voter. So I certainly would encourage the people of Templeton to show up in force, so you have, in this case, a voice to say, I don't want to pay that much, or I do want to pay, whatever you choose to vote.
Well, I think for our next meeting, what I'd like to see on the agenda is looking at the formal warrant and breaking down for the people what that number means, what are any potential alternatives, and just kind of go over the different permutations that could end up there, so that hopefully anyone watches ahead of time, they are more educated when they get there as far as what numbers proposed, how does that relate to the number that the town voted on?
Yep.
And again, what are any potential alternatives there?
One of the things at the last one that we had, they did have, the selectmen were sitting there also on the stage. Weren't they at the last one? Or it was just the school committee?
No.
But I know they had
In
both.
13, it was the two boards of selectmen and the school committee, and we actually voted, the selectmen's made motions to nominate a moderator for that meeting.
Yeah.
Now we're having a meeting
On the
next
7th.
Tuesday
Because
to make
they
that
also had,
decision.
they also had both advisory committees for Phillipston and Templeton sitting on the floor and there was recommendations from both as to what the budget was. So, I mean,
So one of the things that I think is gonna be confusing is if someone wants to make a substitute motion on the number, which I believe is legal to do,
Yes.
when you cut that number, if you just say you choose to take $100,000 off, okay, that's not $100,000 for Templeton, it's $84,000 for Templeton and $16,000 for Phillipston. So you have to be very careful with that we know Phillipston has already funded or found a way to fund their amount, and that we're trying to reduce our budget by $486,000.
Yeah, substitute motion is much more complicated.
Jeff, do you know the issue with the cherry sheets and the $500,000? And do we have, I don't want to say a windfall, but if we do, doesn't that solve the problem?
I don't have the numbers in my head, but I know there are increases on the school side and the town. It's not, I think there's enough in the school funding and in both sides that there is room to come down on that number. And the last time we had this joint district meeting, the school committee did that on the floor.
yes, they did.
But I'm not counting it, but I'm just saying, again, back to Lee's point, look at the numbers and have those cherry sheet numbers to add, to the total of the
I mean,
school.
I kind of understand how when they come up with their budget and they expect so much money in from the state, and you subtract that, or from the state or other sources, whatever come in for Medicaid and all that stuff, you subtract that, and that's what's left over, and they say, okay, Templeton is 84%, Phillipston. So if they're able to reduce that leftover number, I would hope they would do that and not, like Will said, go back to the 7.4 number. They have certified a 6.9 and change number for Templeton, and I would hope that they would stick to that number and not go up.
It all depends on what's happening. The school committee, they actually are meeting on the 14th, a week before, so they will probably actually have the motion at that particular time. So they have the ability at that particular time to end up coming up with a motion other than.
They did sign the warrant Monday,
Yeah.
but, I mean, that would be, that would be a good thing to find out, is if in fact, because of the cherry sheets coming out being corrected, and the governor actually did plus up a little bit, not much, but that maybe the deficit isn't as bad, and I would hope they would take that
And
into
you won't find out
consideration.
till the 14th if they change or not.
I'm just looking at that. You look like you wanted to say something.
Nope.
I have a comment.
Yes.
For the next meeting, the district meeting, I called the town clerk earlier this week to ask if I would be able to do an absentee ballot. I work out of state sometimes, and unfortunately, that day I'm out of state. If we were to do a paper ballot, would that open the opportunity for absentee? Okay.
No, because if you remember at the special town meeting, you had to register.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
I hope somebody's doing kind of quick math. They know X amount of people are registered. And so if they did a ballot and 200 people registered, but they had 203 votes,
Right.
that's a problem. Unfortunately, for town meetings, special town meetings, this type of stuff, you have to be there in person. So I remember seeing some stuff on our favorite social media site where you kind of have a few people deciding, and I don't mean a few, but a few hundred people deciding what's good for the town. And I don't think it's that other people care, but it's like you said, you may be out of town and you want to vote, but you can't.
I am going to be out of town and I can't vote.
So,
There was 200 people at the annual town meeting this year, the first night. The second night, it was 89.
right.
And there's over 5,000, the last time that I checked, and it's probably gone up, just before the annual election, there was 5,206 registered voters in Templeton, and 89 people were there the night they voted Article 26, the town budget of 9,600,000 and something thousand, which was $1 million above the previous year's budget, including debt, insurance, benefit, all of that. The general government article was $1 million more this year than last year's. The school handed Templeton originally, and still has about, 9.6, that's almost $1 million. Prop 2.5, with the 2.5% of our valuation can increase our levy limit. New growth, little increase in general government aid, I think it totals $400,000. We got more in revenue than last year. That's what we based that 9,600,000. So you come along and you get $2 million increase, and you only have about, I'll go on a limb and say 500,000 in new revenue. We got a problem. It's the school, their insurance, their benefits, their labor contracts, they go up, same as the towns. It's the state, it's that formula from '93. There's a committee that recommended in 2015 to do A, B, C, and D. They haven't moved yet. That information is 5 years old. By the time they make a decision, again, it's going to be based on, in all probability, old numbers and old information. It moves at a snail's pace, and the town administrator's weekly report gave Senator Ann Goby a big pat on the back because she got $225,000 funding in the state budget for some stuff at the police station. Well, how about the $700,000 in busing costs for the town of Templeton? And then I'll give you a pat on the back. And that's my speech, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Real quick,
Jeff.
has there been a response to the letters from the special town meeting that we sent?
Not that I'm aware of.
We can,
Not sure.
you can ask the Board of Selectmen that.
I will,
Since
okay.
they sort of spearheaded that. Well,
I'm not sure if we will, but
this isn't, I mean, when he's here, he's not really speaking for the board.
No,
He
this
is
is my-
speaking as a citizen.
I'm a resident
But
here.
we can always give him tasks for the board.
But I do try to keep up with stuff, and I'm happy to share any public information that I can or have available, so.
So anything else on
I
the-
have a question.
Yes.
How do we get more voters participating in the town meeting?
That is an age-old question.
It's a magic question, isn't it?
It is,
It is an
and that's
age-old
what we
question.
really need.
We had a workshop, I think Jeff, were you here, or Amy, you were here, or Lee was here? Lee and I, we did a workshop with the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator of trying to figure out how do you get more voters? And there's just no good solution. If you put, okay, what day of the week would you like to have? You kind of get about the same number of people on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We tried to do town meetings on Saturdays. I thought that would be great.
There's a survey, they've gotten some of the results back. Monday's the hot day to have it. 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock got the most votes. I'm going, what about 6:30? Nope. I can come at 6 or I can come at 7, but I'm not interested. I was like,
Yeah, if you go.
are you sure that's right, Ed? He goes, yeah,
If you go on the
but
town
Mondays.
website, there is,
And
there's actually
either
a
6 or
survey.
7, but not 6:30.
Yeah. There is no perfect time for everybody, but then there's just some people there's people that don't want to go, they don't want to be involved. There's some people say, okay, I get a tax bill, I pay it. But there's other people that they're tired, that they don't think their voice is being heard.
I think we have a lot of new people in town as well, and they might not know, like, how to actively, constructively
Well, but the only way we
become part
get
of
the
the
word
town
out is,
meeting.
we have our Facebook page, the Board of Selectmen, the town has their Facebook page. I mean, really, social media is the way to get it out. All the meetings are in the paper.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people don't get the paper, but there's no perfect way it's posted. We've tried all kinds of different ways. I mean,
Tried 10 years.
I can
Anything and
tell you now
everything.
that the first year that most of us were on the committee, we have more people in the audience now than we did the whole rest of the year combined, with the exception of Will's wife. She always
And her
came.
friend.
And her friend, right.
Yeah, we
Okay.
used to always
And
have
they were, we always had those two, and I actually put on the Facebook page today, hey, this is open to public, we're here for the people of Templeton, and that's why I believe in an open dialogue, and Julie, I thank you for coming, and asking your questions, and other people can, that are, if they're watching the meeting, can email our committee, questions. If someone has a question, just like the Board of Selectmen does, I'll bring it up at the meeting and have the board members discuss it, and maybe even if we have an answer.
Can you share your email address?
It's
So that you-
advisory, yeah, if you go on the town website, and you just hit advisory committee, you can do it that way. I think it's on the webpage. And then when you send an email to the advisory committee, if you send it to that advisory committee at templetonmass.gov, all of us get it. Okay, I've set up a rule in the account, so all of us get it. And they don't like it because they get double emails, but I don't mind.
This might sound silly, but have you guys tried like a postcard campaign to get people to vote? Like, hey, there's town meeting coming, it's at 7 o'clock on the 21st.
We've talked about that, there's been different stuff. But that's honestly, that's a Board of Selectmen, because they do, and the town clerk, because that type of stuff has to come out of the town clerk's budget.
Okay.
This last pre-town meeting that we had this year here was the largest amount of audience
Yep.
And
that I've seen since I've been on the board, and other than back in 12 and 13, when there was some issues there. Because of this issue, we had more people. And it depends on issues, unfortunately, as to who turns out.
And we were fortunate, I had asked both the chief of police and the chief of fire department, Chiefs Bennett and Dickey, school committee, all these people that were affected by this, to come and actually kind of talk at the pre-town meeting about what they did, and they were gracious enough to come and really appreciate the fact that they did that. I mean, nobody wants the town to be in debt, and nobody wants to, I mean, we want everything. We want all our services, we want great schools, and how you get there is kind of a problem when you don't have the income from businesses. You can only be a bedroom community for so long.
And
But it's,
just as a side note, you're saying, how can we get people here? I mean, you've heard of, and I know I don't participate in much social media at all, but I hear, and there's a lot of participation from Phillipston on the school issue. 66 people showed up at the special town meeting in Phillipston last night, whatever it was.
Is that how many were there?
That was in the paper, 66
Oh,
people.
I thought there was one
Yeah, the
that there
votes
was
were pretty
about 47, 23. Maybe, yeah, okay, it's around 60, 70 people.
Yeah. But, and this is supposedly a hot topic issue, so we could get almost 80.
The problem with the postcard thing is we're having a budgetary crisis.
I know.
And so not that it's a bad idea, just now we're adding more cost to the entire thing, so we're trying to do things as cheaply as possible, and obviously social media is the easiest and it's free, so
It is, but I think you're attracting a specific type of
Email.
audience.
don't disagree at all. Yeah.
There was a.
Yeah, and a lot of people aren't on social media, so.
That's my
but
point.
Fully understood, yes.
There was a thing by the town clerk to take and end up sending postcards out, everybody telling them the annual town meeting. Unfortunately, that got taken out of the budget, and that was grabbed by the selectmen for their stipends, that $2,500.
Well, yeah,
Is
I guess
it
it's
possible
kinda-
to ask the town, or maybe some of the voters who voted yes for the override, to see if they'd be willing to spend the money to get the postcards out to the townspeople? Is that available? Is that
I'm sorry,
something that we can do?
Can you say that again?
Can we pose the question for the townspeople who voted yes for the override in May, if they would be willing to contribute money to help pay for a postcard or some kind of fundraiser to do that?
No, I know what you're
mean,
saying,
that's-
but now you're sort of getting into it. For want of better words, a charity type thing is like.
I know, well, that's where there's a line there,
It's-
right?
There has been two groups in the past, in 12 and 13 and 14. And both groups were very active They had members that they generated money and were doing, they were basically active. Since that time, the activity for both groups has fallen off completely.
Can you share the names of the people who ran those groups?
I will off record.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So it's, there's not a good answer. And honestly, it's been, the town administrator's thought about it, that's why he thought enough to have kind of a little workshop. In fact, the town moderator was here and the clerk was here, and then some members from the Board of Selectmen, and, you know.
This committee has some funds set aside to do a flyer type of thing. Unfortunately, with the school budget and stuff, that might be cut and taken to, if needed, to pay for school bills. So it's one of those things.
What about an email flyer? Email the.
Well, I mean, so we have My Town Government that people can be on. There's a website, My Town Government, and it'll notify you when there's meetings, the agendas. I know I get certain meetings that I want to be aware of. I'll get an email saying, hey, the Board of Selectmen's having a meeting on the 7th or whatever date they're meeting, and there's resources out there, but there's no real good way to reach everybody unless somebody wanted to do a door-to-door campaign. And but if you even look at when you have a federal election or a state election, you do get more people, but it sort of depends on, you can see it kind of going like this, of how many people really come out. We very rarely get even close. If you get 20% of the voters to come out, that's huge. Even for state and federal elections.
The biggest turnout for a meeting was, and Jeff can verify this, is when they were against the dump coming in. That, they had, the auditorium was full, the gym was full, and I believe the overflow for the cafeteria, they had to have other people there, and that was probably one of the largest.
I remember that.
And that was in the early 2000.
2004, about, I think 12,
Is that 3 and
13,
4?
2003, 2004, early.
2003.
But that was, yeah, that's the biggest.
So maybe that's how we should put out the ad. Dump's coming. Come on down, August 21st and vote.
Now you see, Bob, we're supposed to be,
I know.
Transparency, so that kind of violates the rules of transparency.
Yeah, I'm sorry, people.
It's a great idea.
And they had groups that were fighting that. That's how the town did not end up with a dump here in town.
Okay, so we're not talking about dumps. Any more thing about the
Yeah.
district meeting?
It's my nature.
I certainly encourage everybody to show up.
Just please show up.
Yes.
The advisory committee
Second.
will be talking about it again on the next meeting on the 15th. Old business or open issues, I don't think we have any open issues. I think I'm waiting on, maybe in our mailbox, a bill for the special town meeting.
Do you want me to go look so we can vote on it before we
No,
leave?
we can't, because it's not on the agenda.
Oh, okay.
So, we'll get to that. Any other old business that anyone can think of? The only thing I can say is I was very pleased with the turnout of the special town meeting. It was a bit of a challenge, but that was good. New business? We talked about all the stuff that's coming up.
The only thing I'd like to mention, I don't know if this is under new business or it would be under member comments, kind of thing, which we,
I don't have member comments on there.
Well, that's why I'm going under new business. But I just had a question that I wanted to open up, and I noticed this, and maybe I should, this isn't the forum, but the advisory committee, from what I hear, has a website or Facebook webpage.
Yes.
Is that official?
Official as in what?
An official advisory committee?
It was never voted on, if that's correct.
Well, the reason I'm asking, because I just wanted to make it my point known that I thought if we do, that it's poor. Because you have to join Facebook, so you have to
Yeah.
join a private entity to access it. So I don't think it should be an official place to document any of
No.
our,
No, we don't.
We don't
Okay.
do any of that.
officially-
okay, I don't know,
Like
because I'm
for-
not there.
No, okay, so for like example, last night I posted on the fact that, hey, we're having a meeting, it's open to the public, it's more for general information.
Yep. That's all
We're not
I'm
gonna
good.
sit there and say our vote was, we're not gonna put the minutes up there or anything like that. It's more just informational. Hey, town, we have this special town meeting, come on out and kind of see it. I think it's just
It's another way to advertise
Yeah.
that meeting.
No, and that's all well and good. I was just concerned that it wasn't official,
It's
you know, because I don't know whether we have the police sites and the fire department sites and, you know.
It's, for what it's worth, it's the only reason I knew you were having a meeting tonight.
Yeah, no, and that's great. If that's what, gets the word out there, that's absolutely great, because we need more of that.
No, all our official business is on the town website.
yes.
So we just put stuff there like there's gonna be a meeting or catch us on the YouTube channel or whatever, so.
And you can link, like, so if you say, we have a meeting tonight, here's the link to the agenda, you can post it, so it will take them to the website to see the agenda. But,
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
informational.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think we are trying to drive people to the town website as well, so
Yeah.
using those links,
You can
because
put,
they're on Facebook, so just push them over there.
Right, oh,
You
yeah.
can put like, and actually Debbie's really good about doing this, is like, once this goes on TCTV, you can put a link on that webpage, so if somebody, forgot, I didn't know you had a meeting, they can just watch the meeting.
Cool,
So it's just more way to get the information out, but it's not official.
okay. That was my only concern, because I hadn't heard anything about it, and all of a sudden I hear about an advisory committee, I'm feeling left out.
I think Mike Curry, last year Mike Curry.
Dang, you found us.
I know. Smarter on social media than I am, and I'm sure there's a lot of stuff I could probably do with it, I just am not that smart to do it. But Mike started it, and it was more just kind of get the word out. I think Will's right, if we were to make it an official, we'd have to vote on whether people want it.
We have to be careful of that.
Yeah, so it's unofficial.
Okay, thank you very much.
I'm not sure this is, I just thought of something, maybe this is old business. We had a discussion about the updated town website and updating the advisory committee page. That still needs to happen.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay, I'll tell you what, we'll put that on for a future meeting to discuss, and who can and is there anybody willing that has the documentation? I know on my town government, if you look at the top, we have meeting minutes missing from all the meetings, that we need to probably try to get them out on there.
I one member who will remain unnamed I think he did volunteer, but
He's no longer a member, Jeff Bennett?
no.
He's still a member, he's sitting next to you on the blue.
Well, this is probably the most text.
Quietly.
So I'll tell you what, we'll bring up, we'll put that on an agenda in the near future
Just access.
of updating
Yeah, I've got
the town website, who has access, and then again, I definitely would want Lee and Debbie to have access. So once we approve meeting minutes, Debbie could go in and just post them, so people can see the meeting minutes. It's always something that I kind of drove me nuts and I haven't really followed through, is I saw all these town meetings, and you want to see the minutes, but nobody ever posts them.
See, one of the things that used to happen was that any of the documents, policies that we had, and documents that we had were posted on there, as well as
Right.
when we had recommendations for special town
Yep.
meetings or whatever, was
Yep.
posted. If you look back, 14 and 15, the recommendations were there.
Yeah, I'd like to have, and
They still are.
I'll tell you what, we'll discuss the webpage at another meeting, and how.
I'm just bringing it up.
No, I think it's a great idea, and it's actually something that slipped through the cracks, and I think it's a good idea that we should, everybody just think about it, and I'd prefer to do that when I'm here, so. Maybe we'll do it the first meeting in September. I'm not gonna do it.
December.
September, wow.
It's like tomorrow.
That's kind of frightening, but yes, you're right.
Mm.
Okay.
All right, I didn't have member comments on here, but I guess I can do that on the fly, is that legal?
No, that would be under new business.
All right, so does anybody else have any new business comments?
That's the best way to handle it.
So, we have nothing else, I want to thank people for coming. Again, the advisory committee is here for the public to take your voice to the Board of Selectmen if needed. And email us, and at that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
What about next meeting?
Oh, thank you. Next meeting's the 15th at 6:30 right here. It's easy to beat math, 1 and 14.
Good times.
Okay, now, we did that. Now I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
In a second.
You got a
We're
second?
adjourned.
You got a second?
I'll second.